Yeah, I know that it's very hard to pronounce. That's Katarzyna Przybyla. You can just call me Kasia, that's much easier. First, I have to admit that I came here to participate in Forum for Young Leaders, and I arrived at Tourism Promotion Forum. So for the past few days, I've been struggling with a question if I was in the right or wrong room and building. However, I think I'm a good example of American cultural diplomacy, as I'm a Fulbright scholar. I am very happy that my colleague stated in his presentation and showed us a study in which was stated that Europe was the most peaceful continent in the world. So I'm here to tell you that that's not true. And I will tell you about different perspectives of culture. I want to tell you something about how culture is used by politicians, how culture is a tool in wars, and how culture is used in conflicts. So I will focus on Europe, and I really want to show you the dark side of this continent and the dark side of intercultural dialogue here. So the idea here was to build one Europe, free, peaceful, open. The founding fathers of Europe had in mind two disastrous world wars, and they wanted to create a space in which war would be only a very painful memory, something from the past, lesson learned. And we are very lucky to say that they succeed, and for many years, Europe was such a place, was. Everything crashed last year. The European security system was destroyed by Russian invasion, the annexation of Crimea, and the conflict in the eastern Ukraine. A conflict that is occurring just before the eastern border of the European Union. A conflict which is still unresolved. A conflict in which many innocent people, citizens, are dying every day. A conflict which has made children living underground. Children living underground. Does it sound like something familiar from European history, 20th century? Well, it happened before in Europe. And one may say that this is the most serious threat to Europe nowadays. And I want to say that that's not true. That there is something more serious in Europe, but this is unnoticed. This is something that we don't think about. But at the beginning, I just want to go back to the whole idea of Europe. So I want to show you what we had. So first, freedom. Free movement of goods, services, capital, and people, citizens. And what has to be underlined is that citizens means also workers, and we have to have it in mind. No borders, so that people can feel what does it mean to be European, to be proud of peaceful Europe. However, there was not only peace in Founding Fathers' mind, they wanted to create a space for future generations, for their children, grandchildren, so that they will not face war anymore, so that they will live together with tolerance. And the European Union rose to the occasion. So what we achieved? Well, The European Union was a huge example for many other countries in the world, as it was an example of successful economic integration. It was an example of a great economic power. The EU's member states decided to cooperate instead of fight like it was in the past. The European Union won a Nobel Peace Prize. For what? For transferring the continent of war to the continent of peace. The European Convention of Human Rights was written, and I don't know if all the people here are aware of the fact that the European human rights system is the oldest in the world and the best in the world still. And when you see what we achieved, one may think that this is perfect. We live in Europe, peaceful Europe, and this is an ideal situation and example for other countries. And it would be perfect if there was no one problem, if we didn't take these things for granted, if we didn't take peace for granted. And what do we have now? We have United Kingdom, which is surprisingly the greatest threat to the European Union and European human rights system. United Kingdom, not Russia. Why United Kingdom? Because it's British Conservative Party which claim that if it wins the elections, next elections in May, I believe, the United Kingdom will withdraw from the European Convention of Human Rights. United Kingdom. So if such a country withdraw from the European Convention of Human Rights, what will do other countries? What do we have? We have migrants living in ghettos in many cities in Western Europe, in France, in Germany, in Great Britain, and they are treated like second or third class citizens. Immigrants from both Europe and outside Europe. And we have children taught not how to understand others, but how to hate others, taught by politicians, leaders, media. And the most important problem, we have Islamophobia, intolerance, and extremism. Do people think about extremism thinking about Europe? No. But fundamentalism and extremism is present in Europe. Different kind of extremism, from the religious extremism to the neo-Nazi extremism. Because one extremism is creating the other. At this point, one may claim, why do you have such situations? So one may claim that people just want to protect themselves. Now they want to protect themselves from terrorists. Because if we watch media, if we read newspapers, what do we have on the front page? A huge war against terrorism, and mainly against Islamic terrorism. So, yeah, this is a huge problem. ISIS is killing people in Iraq and Syria, and they have already killed more than 1,000 civilians in the Middle East. And this is also a threat for Europe, especially that many Europeans are fighting in the Middle East with ISIS, supporting terrorists. But unfortunately, instead of using the war against terrorism to promote intercultural dialogue, because if we want to fight with terrorism, we have to understand each other. So instead of doing that, we're seeing something completely opposite. The war against terrorism has transformed to the war against Muslims and immigrants. That's a misperception, misunderstanding, huge misunderstanding in Europe. And what do we have now again in Europe? What do we see? Or maybe what is the thing that we don't see or we don't want to see? So we have groups like Pegida, Patriotic Europeans Against the Islamization of Europe. This organization is based in Germany, but it works also in Norway, in Switzerland, in the Netherlands. We have less formal groups of young people organized against immigrants and against Muslims, against their neighbors, their friends, their schoolmates, their co-workers. And you don't read about such groups usually in the newspapers. In Great Britain, you have also a British defense group against immigrants and against Muslims. And almost in every country in Europe, you have such groups. In my opinion, this is the most serious problem for Europe nowadays, not the Ukrainian conflict, which is horrible. I'm an expert on Russia and Central Asia, and besides doing my research in the Kroc Institute in the International Peace Studies in the United States, I am also a policy analyst in Polish National Security Bureau. So I know how horrible this conflict can be and what is happening in Ukraine and the former Soviet Union. And although I know that, I'm claiming that the war against our friends, the war against Islam, the war against Muslims, the war against migrants is the most serious problem in Europe. Especially that it may destroy Europe from inside. Because we experienced it before in the past. And we created European Union because of the past experiences. I'm not here to convince you that soon Europe will be destroyed. It may be. That's, possible in every continent. And the European integration and the European Union can be destroyed as well. But I'm here because I'm an optimist, and I know that we can change it. Especially you. You're here in the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy. So you're the people who can start this change. What do we need to change it? I'm from the Institute for International Peace Studies, and when we try to teach and about the strategic peace building, that's a holistic approach to peace building. And it means that not only one level should be included in peace building process. So if we think about peace building, we usually think about UN and police level. And that's not true, because we have 3 levels. We have high level of policy, we have middle level, and we have the grassroots level. And we do not work with every level. We will not achieve anything. So the first thing is that we need real leaders in Europe. Unfortunately, we do not have real leaders in Europe. We had in the past. The founding fathers of the European Union, they were like that. We do not have real leaders who will lead us towards a new Europe. We need actions which will create a new generation of Europeans. Europeans who will be more sensitive to humanity, to intercultural dialogue. But most importantly, we need a European Union which is able to rethink its role as a political actor and use this crisis, because we have a crisis in Europe right now. We have a financial crisis right now. We have crisis because of the Ukrainian conflict. We have a crisis because of the extremism in Europe. So we need Europe which will be able to rethink its policy and use this crisis to build credibility as a peacemaking and peace-building actor on the international stage. Not only economic power, because now we are an economic power, not a political power. And the European Union should take the responsibility, the Council of Europe should take the responsibility, the governments and religious leaders. In the past, religious leaders, not only, and I'm not talking about, Christian religion, but also Islam and any other beliefs. In the past, religious leaders were leading people and showing them the way. They were talking together, they were working together to show people that the dialogue is possible. And now, in most cases, they are silent. But that's not only what we need. Few things are needed to change the way of thinking of people. First, we have to start, we can start at the bottom or at the top of the pyramid. So we can start with the European resolution condemning, what's going on?
Sorry, I'm trying to turn off the speaker because it keeps beeping.
Okay. So we need, I think that first thing can be a resolution condemning the extremism in Europe, but all kinds of extremism. Because when we think about extremism, people usually think about religious extremism. And that's only one part of extremism. And this part of extremism is creating the other. Maybe we need a new commissioner in the EU, commissioner responsible for intercultural dialogue. We do not have such a commissioner right now. And if we want to start from the bottom, we need to change the educational programs in Europe. So we have to include courses of intercultural dialogue, understanding, cultural differences. We have to include such courses into educational programs in all countries in Europe so that the children will learn that we're all the same. We have differences, but differences are interesting. We can learn about other cultures, and that's nice. That's something good, and that's something interesting that my friend is different than I am. So, finally, we need a clear message. Of course, we need cultural dialogue and understanding, but these are empty words if we don't do anything. We can say, yeah, cultural dialogue and understanding, this is crucial. Yes, it is. But, you have to do something with that. You cannot just say, yeah, cultural dialogue, we will talk. That's not enough. You have to teach children, and they have to, be together in groups with, the representatives of different cultures. Because if you just give them theory, it will not change anything. But the change also has to be made in the leaders' minds. So we need a clear message from the European Union's leaders, from the Council of Europe. We need a clear message that extremism in all its kind is horrible, and it's dangerous, and it can destroy Europe. And intolerance and fundamentalism, this is a real threat for the future of Europe. If we don't do anything right now, if we don't act to the occasion, we will face one extremism walking after another on our streets. And that's not only a metaphor. We will see religious extremism on the one side and the neo-Nazi groups on the other. And we have them. And I'm not just a crazy Polish lady from the American Peace Institute. And these are not just empty words. Because it happened in Europe before. And it was called Holocaust. Thank you.